Wylan Yee.
Will all senators please report to the Senate floor? We're about to begin session, and Senator Steinberg is awaiting discussion. So would members please come to the Senate floor?
Here in December.
Quorum.
Onnested, Alquist, Ashburn, Calderon, Cedillo, Cogdill, Corbett, Correa, Cox, Denham, Dusanier, Ducheney, Dutton, Flores, Hancock, Harmon, Hollingsworth, Huff, Kehoe, Leno, Liu, Lowenthal, Maldonado, Negrete McLeod, Oropesa, Padilla, Pavley, Price, Romero, Runner, Smidian, Steinberg, Strickland, Walters, Wiggins, Wolk, Wright, Wylan Yee.
Senator Steinberg is recognized at his desk.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to WARF. That's without reference to file.
Okay.
Senate Bill 4.
Senator Steinberg has requested for WARF, but members, at this time the regular session will stand in recess and we will convene in the 5th extraordinary session. The prayer and pledge will be deemed complete. There are committee reports at the desk. Will the Secretary please read? We'll bypass that. Deemed read. Senator Steinberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There's a resolution at the desk requesting permission to invoke the Constitution. This request has been approved by the Rules Committee. I urge your adoption of the resolution so that we can proceed with the matters at hand relating to the federal race to the top, including a very important Semidian bill.
Secretary, please read the resolution.
Resolved that Senate Bill 4 presents a case of urgency as that term is used in Article 4, Section 8B of the Constitution, and the provision of that section requiring that the bill be read on 3 several days in each House is hereby dispensed with, and it is ordered that said bill be read the second and third times, considered engrossed, and placed upon its passage.
Will the Secretary please call the roll on the resolution? Members, this is the 27-vote bill. Resolution.
Onnested, Alquist, Ashburn, Calderon, I. Cedillo, I. Cogdill, I. Corbett, I. Correa, Cox, I. Denham, I. DeSaulnier, Duchesne, Dutton, Flores, I. Hancock, Harmon, I. Hollingsworth, Huff, I. Kehoe, I. Leno, I. Lowenthal, I. Liu, I. Maldonado, I. Negrete McLeod, I. Oropesa, I. Padilla, Pavley, Price, I. Romero, I. Runner, I. Semidian, I. Steinberg, I. Strickland, I. Walters, Wiggins, Wolk, I. Wright, I. Weiland, I. Yee.
Okay. Please call the absentees.
Onnested, Alquist, Ashburn, I. Correa, DeSaulnier, I. Duchesne, Dutton, Hancock, Hollingsworth, Padilla, Pavley, Walters, Wiggins, Yee. Yee, aye.
Ayes 28, noes 0. The resolution is adopted. Will the Secretary please read the bills a second time?
Senate Bill 4 by Senator Romero, an act relating to public schools.
Will the Secretary please read the bill a third time?
Senate Bill 4 by Senator Romero, an act relating to public schools.
Senator Steinberg, you're recognized at your desk and you may open.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators Romero and Semidian are going to present the respective bills, but given all of the energy and the action and the back and forth today, I wanted to make just a brief opening comment to put the process here into a little bit of perspective. You know, if you have to be in session in the month of December, boo, right. At least we can be proud of the fact that we are debating some of the most important issues relating to the future of public education. And I know there have been some comments today about the process and about, well, geez, we passed a Romero and Semidian bill, and the Assembly passed a Brownlee bill, and now we're taking up a Romero-Semidian bill. Again, I was just, for perspective in terms of, I think, how good our process is, I was reading an article today in the Washington Post about what's happening on the United States Senate floor as it relates to health care. And this isn't a partisan comment at all. It's just more about the procedure. On the Senate floor yesterday, Republicans demanded that the Senate clerk read aloud a 767-page Democratic amendment sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. The bid was foiled 3 hours later when Sanders withdrew his long-shot proposal. However, the minority party is expected to make a similar move when Harry Reid introduces the revised Senate bill, which is likely to top 2,000 pages and which cannot be similarly withdrawn. And so I think our process is pretty good here. As we go back and forth, we have been endeavoring to work with the other House to find common ground between the original Romero bill, SB 1, and the Brownlee bill. We are not there yet. But as a result of the public hearings that you've participated in, as a result of the House-to-House discussions and the negotiations, we have significantly narrowed the differences. We have agreed on how to authorize the superintendent and the president of the State Board of Education to enter into local agreements with districts to enter Race to the Top. We have determined how to select the 180 or so schools that will be subject to intervention under Race to the Top. We have come to an agreement about how to strengthen academic standards and assessments in a way that is consistent with the federal law. We have already determined through Senator Simitian's original bill how data might be used for purposes of principal and teacher evaluation. We have agreed on significant reforms to our student and education data systems. We have had very constructive discussions about how to pilot this parent empowerment concept. We have had constructive discussions about how to deal with this issue of the charter cap and charter accountability. And we are having constructive discussions about open enrollment. We're not quite there yet, which is why Senator Romero's bill, which she is about to present, is not necessarily a final product. But the deadline here, members, to submit the application for Race to the Top funds is January the 19th. It takes maybe a month, 3 weeks to a month, to complete that application. So this process today, as much as it may seem a little herky-jerky, has in fact narrowed the differences significantly. We will continue to work with the governor and the assembly to reconcile those remaining differences so that the work can be easily finished up when we return in January. Thank you for your patience. Senator Romero.
Senator Romero.
Thank you, Mr. President, members. And let me just first of all give a particular thanks to the pro tem of the Senate, a real champion of public education. I feel like I have stretch marks in this process. I don't know if you can have stretch marks, but I mean, you've certainly been just heroic, and I want to thank you in advance. I'd like to also acknowledge the role of the Speaker of the State Assembly. Whether somebody is in support or in opposition, it has been, I think, a very healthy discussion in California. Senator Steinberg spoke about all that we have in common. And so I just want to, I'm not going to reiterate that. The pro tem has acknowledged this. Senate Bill 4, the version before us today, emphasizes so much that we've come into agreement with. We can pretty much take it off the table. We also talked about the question of charter schools, and while in the original version of Senate Bill 1, I would have preferred to have lifted the cap on charter schools, there were other issues involving questions of accountability and regulation. That, in the consensus of the two houses, was moved off the table. We're basically down to two issues today. We're down to two issues. And in changing that question on the charter schools, make no doubt about it, when we looked at the final regulations as to how RTT was written, we sort of thought, you know, maybe the angels looked down and helped us a little bit, because California has made strong strides towards supporting independent public charter schools in California. We feel very good because of the strong strides we have made in the past. We should be in a very good position to be competitive at Race to the Top on that grounds. We will not be penalized. 2 issues, remember, we're down to 2 issues. The clock is ticking. We're down to 2 issues. And so, and let me just say, we have had extensive vetting of these issues in Education Committee, and I really hope that the confidence of this floor with the stellar members on that Education Committee would allow us to proceed to actually get back to the table to continue working on these issues. 2 questions that remain where there is that we have to work out. One of them is simply the parent trigger. This was contained in Senate Bill 1. It moved off the floor. What we do in Senate Bill 1 is retain the language of the parent trigger, which basically says that parents themselves can go ahead, if they are in the low-performing school, be able to sign petitions, petition their government, their school board, to do something about changing, transforming a low-performing school. The difference largely between the language in Senate Bill 1 and this is we limited it, quite frankly, to just 75 schools. Okay, that's one issue. I believe in parent empowerment. Parents are our allies. I've often told you, my mother had a 6th grade education. She fought for me. Which parent would not fight for their kids? That's parent empowerment. The other issue over which there's quite a bit of discussion is the issue of open enrollment. As it passed the Senate in Senate Bill 1, we had limited open enrollment to the lowest 3 deciles in California. This bill limits it even further. It's just 1, the lowest performing, the lowest decile schools in California. I indicated in committee that, members, this issue has been passed by 18 other states in the nation. 18 other states have open enrollment policies. In January of next year, Wisconsin will be the 19th. California could be the 20th. We believe it's an additional tool in the toolbox for parents for open enrollment. And what it essentially says is that in that lowest decile, parents will retain the right to say, it is my child, I'm going to move my child from the lowest performing school and to allow them to enter into another district. There were lots of discussions about the sending district, the receiving district. Senator Simitian asked a number of questions on the receiving district. I made commitments in the Senate Education Committee that we would address the concerns on especially looking at the financial adverse impact for receiving districts, looking at the process, the standard of denial, looking at the concerns over potential lawsuits, the appeal process. I made the commitment that we would address these issues as we once again move forward. I'm getting the calls from members that they want me to hurry up because people need to go forward. We don't want to lose votes. I'm just asking us, the clock is ticking. This is really our last opportunity. Race to the top, send a message to the nation, fight for critical dollars for our kids in California. I respectfully ask for an aye vote to move this once again to try to get closure and an application for California that we can step back and be proud of. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Romero. Senator Huff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise in support of this bill. In education, first of all, I thank you for your patience as we were vetting this through the committee process. And it was a vetting. It was a rigorous debate on the issues as articulated by Senator Romero. But at the end of the day, I believe we have a stronger bill. I don't believe it's as strong as it was when we passed it out of here before as SB 5X1, and yet it still merits approval. Rather than getting into the minutia of the bill, the very simple issue is we as legislators have been failing our kids. It's not the teacher's fault, it's the system's fault, and we're the ones that design the system. And it's time we change that. Failure is no longer an option, and yet we have failed them by inaction. This is a step in the right direction. It will help us be competitive for the race to the top federal funds. More importantly, it's not one-time money, as people keep saying. While it's one-time money right now, Secretary Duncan has said there will be additional funding down the road. We need to be there early. We need to be there often. We need to get there. We're going to be making difficult choices. We're going to be cutting education possibly later on this year or early next year. And when there's money on the table left because of our inaction, that would be a total shame and going against what our kids need. More importantly, this is reform that will help our kids and help our schools to excel in the future in a world economy. I urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Huff. Senator Lowenthal is recognized at his desk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the author for all the work. I will be supportive of the bill today. I do have some concerns that I think still need to be addressed. I just want to briefly raise them. And these are the concerns that were raised by the California Together Coalition of the lack of attention to English language learners. And basically, for me, ultimately, I'd like to at least have the bill, when it comes back, at least address two things. Those are bottom 140 schools where their school boards must engage in one of the four options where they have to do, that these schools have academic and instructional strategies that are targeted to the subgroups that are not meeting those needs. Those are the English. And the second one is that we identify, develop, and provide effective accommodations for English learners that will allow meaningful participation in the assessments and that address the unique linguistic and social cultural needs of the English learner without altering the test construct. Obviously, I favor that there be assessments, but those assessments have got to be fair for those English language learners. With that, I'd like to at least, the bill does not hurt English language learners, but it doesn't really focus at all on them. I'd at least like some attention paid to these before the bill comes back. But with that, I will be certainly supporting the bill today. I think you've made great strides. I think this will make it stronger and will not weaken what you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Senator Wylands recognizes his desk.
Mr. President, members, I agree with Senator Lowenthal. English language learners and helping them are key to the future of this state. We are using this as a way to help those at the lowest performing schools that we have to help. And the only comment I would make is Senators Simitian and Padilla spent an extensive amount of time addressing in detail virtually every other concern that one might have about the effects on districts. The author has acknowledged all of these, has pledged to deal with each of these. Thoroughly vetted means a lot of time over each issue. I urge an aye vote.
Members, any more debate and discussion? Seeing, hearing none, Senator Romero, you may close.
Members, let's run the race. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay. Secretary, please call the roll.
Onnested, Alquist, Ashburn, aye. Calderon, aye. Cedillo, aye. Cogdill, aye. Corbett, no. Correa, Cox, aye. Denham, aye. DeSaulnier, no. DeCheney, Dutton, Flores, aye. Hancock, Harmon, aye. Hollingsworth, Huff, aye. Kehoe, Leno, no. Liu, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Maldonado, aye. Negrete McLeod, Oropesa, Padilla, aye. Pavley, Price, aye. Romero, aye. Runner, aye. Simitian, aye. Steinberg, aye. Strickland, aye. Walters, Wiggins, Wolk, no. Wright, no. Weiland, aye. Yee, no. Onnested, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Alquist, Correa, DeCheney, Dutton, Hancock, Hollingsworth, Kehoe, Negrete McLeod, no. Oropesa, Pavley, Walters. Wiggins.
Ayes 21, no 7. The measure is passed. Senator Simitian.
I'd like to take up SB 2 of the Fifth Extraordinary Session.
Will the Secretary please read SB 2?
Senate Bill 2 by Senator Simitian, an act relating to pupil data.
Data Bill 35-0 in this House, 69-0 in the other House. Amendments are technical and minor in nature. The only thing we do need to note for the record is that we have limited the Department of Education's work to the promulgation of policies and procedures in lieu of, instead of, rather than regulations in order to hold down the costs. Respectfully ask for an aye vote on concurrence. Again, 69-0 on that side, 35-0 on this side, asking for an aye vote on concurrence.
Members, any debate or discussion on this item? Seeing, hearing none, would the Secretary please call the roll?
Onnested. Aye. Alquist. Ashburn. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Cedillo. Aye. Cogdill. Aye. Corbett. Correa. Cox. Aye. Denham. Aye. Dethanier. Aye. Ducheney. Dutton. Flores.
Aye.
Aye. Hancock. Harmon. Aye. Hollingsworth. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Leno. Aye. Liu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Maldonado. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Oropesa. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Price. Aye. Romero. Aye. Runner. Aye. Simitian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Walters. Wiggins. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Weiland. Yee. Yee, aye. Correa, aye.
Ayes 28, no 0. The measure is passed. Members, any more items to take up? I do know we need to lift the call on 2 items that we have that were in the regular session. So, members, the extraordinary session will be in recess. We are now reconvening the regular session. Can we lift the call on item 105?
Alquist. Calderon. Aye. Cogdill. Corbett. Aye. Ducheney. Hancock. Huff. Aye. Liu. Aye. Maldonado. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Romero. Aye. Simitian. Aye. Weiland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye. Lowenthal, no to aye. Leno, no to aye.
Ayes 30, noes 4. The measure is passed.
You're an aye, Senator.
Members, we're now going to lift the call on item 80. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Alquist. Calderon. Aye. Cogdill. Corbett. Aye. Ducheney. Hancock. Huff. Liu. Aye. Maldonado. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Romero. Aye. Simitian. Aye. Weiland. Aye. Yee. Okay. Lowenthal, no to aye. Huff, aye. Wolk, no to aye. Leno, no to aye.
Ayes 30, noes 3. The measure is passed. Senator Romero is recognized at Senator Steinberg's desk.
Thank you, members. I'd like to acknowledge and ask our very esteemed colleagues to step forward. We have 2 retirements from the Senate Education Committee, and I'd like to ask them to step forward. First of all, let's start with Jim Wilson. Jim Wilson has faithfully served all of us in education, our students, our teachers, our parents. He has served in the state of California since 1973. He has seen it all. And today, Jim, you'll always remember you went out with the race of all time in California. I can't tell you how diligent he has been in serving the state of California. We will miss him tremendously. 23 years of seeing and shaping education policy and fiscal issues in the state of California. Members, I'm going to ask you to please give a very gracious thank you to Jim Wilson, who can now go hopefully fishing, enjoy retirement, read the education papers from time to time, but we will know that the future of the state of California has been placed in good hands because he has been a shepherd all along. And next to me, you see a very distinguished colleague, our esteemed chancellor of the California Community Colleges, who was the chair of Education Committee for years, who I had the privilege to serve with. I'd like to turn the mic to Chancellor Scott so that he may address the vital role that Jim Wilson has given to all of us in his role as the chief consultant for the committee. Senator Scott.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Romero. It is a real pleasure to honor Jim Wilson. I had the great privilege of serving as chair of the Education Committee for 4 years, and I had very close contact with Jim Wilson. I started to say weekly, but really it was daily. And I found him to be a consummate professional. Jim Wilson has a keen sense of humor. He is rather unflappable, but he would take a tremendous burden of work. He analyzed hundreds of bills as well as assigned members of the committee those bills. His knowledge is really unusual. It's great to have that kind of institutional memory, and we understand how important staff is when we have to lean on them, as I did in the 4 years that I worked with Jim Wilson. I consider him a friend. I consider him somebody that has made a tremendous contribution to the state of California. And so I wanted to come over today to join with Senator Romero in paying tribute to an excellent public service, Jim Wilson.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed 13 years with the Senate Education Committee, and the best part of working here is working with great people like you. Thank you.
Members, is there any more business for the Senate? Okay. Senator Steinberg.
I just want to add my word of thanks to Jim Wilson as well. You know, when we make law, it's obviously about public policy, but it's also about getting the law right. And that means making sure that technically what we do is consistent with what we intend to do and with other parts of the code. And there's no one in this building, when there's any question about what's in the code and what's technical and how do we fix what we need to do in order to fulfill the public policy we desire, there's nobody better at it than Jim. And I just want to say a personal thank you as well.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg.
And one more as well. We also, because we have hardworking staff in Education Committee, Nancy Anton, please step forward. She has likewise been partner to the great policy debates in education. She saw quite a bit this year. She's been a formidable force in helping to shape and lead education policy. She has decided to retire, leave the building. We just want to thank you, Nancy, for all that you have done, and just go and enjoy fishing. Senator Scott?
All right, I too want to say a word or two about Nancy Anton. Nancy is someone who is extremely hardworking and extremely knowledgeable. Her specialty was higher education, and frequently she even staffed the bills that I carried, whether it had to do with nursing education or transfer or many other topics in higher education. But you could always count on her keen analytical mind that would come to bear on bills that came in front of the Senate Education Committee. And I always enjoyed those weekly gatherings where we called upon the staff as they began to analyze the bills. And I knew I could always count on Nancy to give such a great insight into these bills. She was technically a half-time the last few years here, but I'll tell you, we got our money's worth because she was always there as far as I was concerned. So Nancy is just another great professional. We hate to lose her. I see her two lovely daughters here with her, and I congratulate them on their brilliant mother and the kind of staff work that she did.
Senator Steinberg.
Thank you very much. I just also want to add my word of thanks to Nancy. Nancy was actually one of the first people I met when I moved to Sacramento 25 years ago. And now I've had the privilege to actually work with her. And all the things that Senator Romero and Senator Scott said are true. I just want to add that as we work on and think about how to link education with the economy and how to increase the pipeline of educated and trained workers in areas where we have such great demand, whether it be nursing, whether it be counselors, that Nancy has really led the way from a policy perspective in helping us see the future. And so thank you, Nancy, very much.
Members, there is no other business before the Senate. Senator Steinberg, the desk is clear. The Senate will reconvene or will stand in recess until at 3:30, upon which the adjournment motion will be made. We will reconvene January 4th, 2010 at 2 p.m. January 4th, 2010 at 2 p.m. The Senate will stand adjourned.